When visiting a garden center last summer, I saw a beautiful example of a gazing ball and how it was made and what you had to use to do that with. And I just happened to have a friend who knows how to do glass work. Her name is Elgene Linscott. She's with me this morning and she's got a progression of how-tos on how to make a beautiful gazing ball for your garden from all things a bowling ball. Elgene, I cannot wait. I want you to start in the beginning.
Okay, the beginning is you start with a piece of stained glass. And these are very easy. You can get these at a lot of craft stores. And the thing you need to remember is when you get glass, you want something that you cannot see through. Now I know this is an iridized piece of glass and you can see through it somewhat, but since it's going on a dark background, that's not as important. If it were a white background, it would be more important. The next thing you do, and for one of these bowling balls, it takes about 1.5 sheets, less than 1.5 sheets. This is about a 12 by 12 sheet of glass.
Is this the typical size?
This is the typical size. It's sold in the craft stores.
Right.
You cut your glass in strips, and I like about 1/2 inch strips maybe. When you get your strips cut, I use these nippers for mosaic pieces. You just break your glass. I like triangular pieces. Sometimes I do a little bit more irregular pieces.
Can I ask you a question? Now, I see you have tools because you do stained glass work. What if we have someone that would like to do this? Do you have suggestions as to how to get these shapes, or does this matter?
Well, they fit together, as you can see on the finished product. They do fit together easier for me if they are these pieces.
Okay.
You can also buy these tools at the same decorating craft store that you buy the glass. They also offer your glass cutters and your breakers.
Let's look
and your
at
nippers.
that just a minute. Let's put them side by side. Now, what would this cost someone?
Well, I noticed the other day this one runs about between $20 and $30, depending on where you buy it.
So you could be a project to do with friends.
Yes,
And
it's
absorb
good.
those prices.
Yes.
Okay, let's go on now.
Okay, after you get your glass, I like to get all my glass cut into pieces first.
Okay, we're going to move down. Okay.
There are different adhesives that you can use.
You're going to fill the hole.
I have filled the holes with caulking, and this does come out white,
Okay.
but it will dry clear.
All right. Okay, I like your duct tape. You know, I've heard stories about duct tape. This is a new use.
This is a new use for duct tape. It
Okay.
holds the bowling balls very
All right.
stable
So-
while I'm using them.
Okay.
Now, you take your glass.
So after how long do you have to let this
Well,
dry?
I filled these yesterday.
Okay.
Now, I will probably come back at a later time and you feel there is a little
Yes, I have
indentation.
to
You
do.
want them more level.
Okay.
But this is not a one-day project.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, now the next step is adhering it.
Okay, you want to go on the non-iridized part of the glass
Okay.
and just spread each piece. It does get a little tedious, but this is something you don't want to be in a hurry with.
I'm sorry, but that reminds me of putting mayonnaise or peanut butter on a cracker,
That's
right?
right. And the one thing you do want to remember is when you're doing this, make sure you leave enough gap for your grout to go down in.
How long does it take this adhesive to work?
Well, it's relatively quick. I usually do a space at a time. You know, with a favorite TV program or something, I might do a space this big. I have covered half a ball one day and do the other half.
Okay,
Most
let me
of the
ask
time,
you a question. Now, I see adhesive on the top of this glass. Do you have to be careful with this adhesive?
Well, in the end, in the final stage, you clean it very well.
Okay.
Because there's going to be grout on it and there will be more of this adhesive.
Now then, let's come up here and talk about the next phase of once we've covered the surface of the bowling ball. Let's talk about what you're doing in this process.
Okay, this is more tedious and more messy than the last part. This is where you fill each crevice, each space between the glass with caulk.
Okay, let's...
with grout.
Grout, okay. Let us look at the packaging on that grout also, and let's talk about what you're using.
Well, this is just regular tile grout, and I add a coloring to mine, which is available, and all these things are available at there are specific mosaic like adhesives and grout.
Okay.
And I just color mine so that it shows up better, and the emphasis is on the glass. Okay, you don't want to let your grout dry completely.
Okay. Another staging,
yes,
isn't it?
And I do all the grout in one day. I may not necessarily finish it in one day, but I do cover it in one day. When I get it to this stage, you don't want to do it when the grout is really wet, because you'll pull the grout out between the pieces of glass.
How long does this take to dry?
Well, you can feel since we're outside, it's drying faster.
Oh, yeah.
But inside, like in my shop, I may leave it for an hour.
Okay.
Then I come back with a damp, the whole ball will be covered with grout. I come back with a damp paper towel. This is the most tedious part of making these.
Patience.
Patience. Everything has to be washed, but you don't want your towel very wet. You want it just damp. After you have completely done this step, and I have been interrupted in this step before, and what I do if I'm interrupted and I cannot finish it, so those things happen.
That's right.
I will take several paper towels and I will dampen them, not wet where they're dripping, and I will simply cover the ball completely with damp paper towels.
Could you cover it with a plastic bag also?
You could do that. Anything to keep the moisture in.
Okay.
But phone calls, got to go find someone, you just cover it with a paper towel or plastic bag, something to keep that moisture in.
This is just very amazing.
When you come back, you still have the grout everywhere.
Okay.
In the final stage, what I do after I've gotten the glass exposed,
there it is.
when I get to about this stage, I come back more carefully with my paper towels and I wipe each individual piece.
Okay,
and yes, it does use a lot of paper towels. After you've come to this point where most of the grout is off.
do you ever use a dry one, or is it always a wet one?
Yes, when it has to be very damp for you to use the dry one.
Okay.
When it's at this point, this is the tedious, you come back with Q-tips. And you have to keep your Q-tips relatively dry. I usually squeeze the water out of them. And you clean each piece.
And don't touch the in-between grout.
And you don't want to pull that wet grout out between the pieces. And this is very tedious. It can take an entire, the most of an entire evening, and that means hours.
I can't imagine not wanting to spend this time maybe alone or with a group, because the finished product that you're going to create from this bowling ball is worth it all, isn't it?
Well, it is a wonderful project for a group of friends.
Okay.
You get 4 or 5 women together, and children could do this, but I would not do it unsupervised.
This is our finished one. Now, which one of these has weathered the winter over?
This one has weathered winter, and I have coated it with a waterproofing.
Okay. And you use Thompson's water seal. Okay. That's what we would use on a lot of things outdoors. Well, now, one of the things that when we think about putting an element like this in our garden is, what are we going to make it stationary with? I think that Elgin has brought some examples of what could be used and has different things you could improvise. You may even have a bird bath that you could sit this in. Just lots of ways that a person could create in their own yard.
Well, Annette, I was very lucky in that after we saw this project in Jackson, I came back to Clarksville and I found a bowling alley owner that had several bowling balls that they were ready to discard. And he was more than willing for me to take them off his hands.
Well, That's a great idea, and you know, I think I'd like to do this well enough that I might just go buy me a bowling ball. I have a question. Did you know that when our gardens began to come outside of the early Williamsburg and even back to England gardens, they were first inside of fences. The very next step that came along in the gardening was that they built lawns, but they weren't lawns for mowing and being beautiful. They were bowling lawns. So how about that? We've taken a bowling ball. I think that's a neat connection to the early gardens, and we're using a bowling ball as a gazing ball in our own gardens. Thank you for all your knowledge and expertise in this beautiful day with you.
Thank you, I enjoyed it.
If you like gardening, you'll want to subscribe to this channel. We showcase gardeners, plants, and the joy that growing can bring.